This video is part 2 of our climbing implementation. Last time, we determined whether our character could climb and whether they should climb. Now we need them to perform it. Starting from where we left off, we now want to initiate a climb. Before that, we'll need to extract some information from canClimb. I'm doing it this way so canClimb doesn't rely on member variables in case you wanted to make it public and call it from other scripts. Anyways, canClimb will output the down raycast hit, the forward raycast hit, and the end position, and I'll initialize them at the start of the function and set them right before returning true. Then we'll need fields to cache the output and use them as arguments in our function call. With the information extracted, we can create and call initiateClimb. Let's start by setting climb to true, resetting new speed to 0, resetting the animator's forward parameter to 0, disabling the capsule collider, and set isKinematic to true so collisions and physics won't interfere with our climb. We'll calculate height like before, and based on the height, we can choose which animation to use. So let's add serialized fields for a hang height, a climb up height, a vault height, and a step up height. And while we're here, we're going to need fields for our animation settings. For convenience, I'll create a new class to encapsulate those settings as there are a lot of values to expose. Let's create a new script called CrossFadeSettings, and it will be a regular C# class and won't inherit from monobehavior. Make sure it's serializable. And it will have a string for the state name, an integer for the layer, a float for the time offset, and a float for the transition duration. Then I'll give layer the attribute of a minimum of -1, and both time offset and transition duration a minimum of 0. And that should be it for our crossfade settings. Since the animator isn't overloaded to use our crossfade settings, you'll have to send each of the properties as individual arguments, or we can make an extension method. If you aren't aware, extension methods are, well, a way to extend a class that you may not have access to. And this is done by using a static class and a static method with the first parameter being an instance of the class that you're extending. So let's make a new extension class and a public static function called crossfade. Using the keyword this, it will take an animator and a crossfade setting. And in the body, we'll call the animator's crossfade function using the properties of the crossfade settings. Now the animator will have an overloaded crossfade function that uses our crossfade setting. And I'll just copy and paste to make an in-fixed-time version. Now we can create a crossfade setting for each of our animations. Stand to free hang, climb, vault, step up, drop, and drop to air. Back in initiateClimb, we'll determine which height range the ledge belongs to, going from highest to lowest, and crossfade into the corresponding animation. Anything else we won't crossfade. I set climb back to false, but I had forgotten to re-enable the collider and set isKinematic to false, so make sure that you do, even though it should never get to this point in code. We've made a lot of changes, but have yet to set it up, so let's head into the editor. First, I'll add the event curator to the character. Then in the controller, I'll set that the character must be facing the ledge within 5 degrees, the maximum steepness as 60 degrees, and the layer mask as everything. I'll set the overpass height as 1.8, the hang height as 2.1, the climb up as 1.35, vault as 0.85, and step up as 0.25. Note that these values are specific to the model and animations, so you'll have to adjust accordingly for your own project. I'll make the end offset 0.2 inward of the edge, and then I'll make the climb origin down 2.9 above the character and 0.3 forward, so we're just outside the capsule's radius. Then, for the animation settings, I'll set the state name to the names in the animator and leave the rest as 0. Again, these will change for your own project, and make sure that the hang height, climb height, etc. are in descending order, otherwise it may not work as intended. Before testing, I'm going to disable camera collisions so we can see what's going on. Running into the ledge, we see 2 problems. Our character didn't go anywhere, and we're stuck after the animation finishes. So those are our next steps, motion and exiting climbing. To do that, we'll use the SMB events. Let's add the state machine behavior to the stand to freehang animator state and add 2 events, one on enter and one on exit. Then we'll do the same for climb up, vault, step up, and drop. Back in the script, we need to react to these events. So I'll create a private void on SMB event that takes in a string called event name. And in the start, I'll add it as a listener to our event curator. Also, we won't need this line as we'll handle the motion ourselves. In on SMB event, we'll create a switch statement and make a case for all our exit events. Stand to freehang exit we'll handle later. But as for the other 4, we'll set climbing to false, enable the capsule collider, and set is kinematic to false. If you didn't know, cases without a break will cascade down to the next case. Double check that our strings match, and we'll define on animator move to prevent root motion for now, as we got rid of the line earlier. Testing in the scene, we can move again after the character performs a climb. Now we need to actually get our character to move, and there are a few different ways to do this. You can lerp or use root motion, but what I'm going to do is use match target. Match target is a way to position a body part at specific points in an animation, and the animator does that by altering the root motion. We will need another serialized field for the hang offset, and some private variables for the match target position, the match target rotation, the rotation created by the forward normal XZ, and a match target weight mask. But this always stays the same, so I'll initialize this to have a position weight of vector 3.1 and a rotation weight of 1. In initiate climb, we'll calculate the forward normal XZ like we did before. Then we'll get the rotation where the negative forward normal XZ is the forward and the world up is the up. This rotation is a rotation directly facing the vertical surface of the ledge on the XZ plane. Anyways, for the climb up, the match target position is the end position, and the match target rotation is the rotation we just calculated. And this is the same for both the vault and the step up. However, hanging is different. We'll be using match target with the root, so we need to apply an offset so that when the character is hanging, it looks like their hands are holding onto the ledge. Otherwise, the feet will be where the ledge is. So, the match target position is the point of the forward raycast hit with the offset applied in the forward normal orientation. Now that we have our match target position and rotation, we need to use them. I'll do this in the on SMB event and create a case for the stand to freehang enter. Here, let's call the animator match target with our match target position, match target rotation, the avatar target as the root, and weight mask as weight mask. The start normalized time and the target normalized time are going to be different for each animation, and I'll come back to them. But let's create cases for the other enters and hop into our animator controller. Scrubbing through stand freehang, we see that the character actually begins to move around 0.3 and stops at 0.65, so that is the time frame in which we want to match target and want movement to happen. In climb up, it moves immediately and finishes at around 90%. In vault, it happens immediately and ends at 65%. Step up is from 30% to 80%, and for drop, at 30% they let go and land at 50%. And then we'll use these ranges as the start and target time of our match target. But now we need to update our on animator move. Without having to turn on and off root motion, we can just check if the animator is matching target, and if so, we can apply the built-in root motion. Testing in the scene, we got something pretty decent. And for the hang, this is because even though we applied the offset, we never set it in the inspector. So I'll make the offset down 1.8 and 0.1 back from the wall, because if you remember, this is applied in that wall space and not in world space. And there we go, fixed. Next, we have to address hanging, and for that we need to wait for either forward or backward input to see if we want to climb up or drop down. We could do this in the update, but I'll use a coroutine as this is a good example of a use case for them. First, I'll make a reference to a coroutine. Then let's make our coroutine function, and it's required to return an enumerator. And what that is an interface that supports something to be iterated, meaning it can be moved through. but the important part is that we can stop and resume its execution at specific points. The first thing our hanging routine needs to do is wait for an input, which we detect by checking if our input move axis forward raw is equal to 0, yielding and returning null if it is. Normally, a while loop will continue as long as this condition is met, sometimes prolonging the frame infinitely as it never allows the game to progress. But here, the yield allows the execution to stop, letting the next frame start, then resuming the execution, checking if the conditions have changed. If there is input, we can exit out of the while loop and progress with the rest of the function. If forward is pressed, we'll crossfade into climb up and set the match target position and rotation just as before, and at the very end, I'll just null out the reference to the routine. But we need to start the routine somewhere, and I'll do that when the stand to free hang exits. Hang routine is equal to start coroutine passing the I enumerator returned by the hanging routine function. Testing, I can hang off the tall ledge, and as I press forward, the character climbs up. Now we need to do dropping down. For that, we'll need more serialized fields, a vector for the drop offset, and a float for the distance that we want to check for ground. Back in the coroutine, else if inputs.backwards.pressed. We'll need to do a raycast to see if there's ground beneath us using our current position and the drop check distance. If we do not find anything, we'll just crossfade into drop to air. Otherwise, we'll calculate the target position by offsetting the hit point by the drop offset, similarly to how we did the hang position. The target rotation is the same as before, and then we'll crossfade into drop. We also need to create another case for drop to air. Here we can see at around frame 15 is when we actually want to start falling. So let's add the behavior and add an event named drop to air with the on update timing at frame 15. In the case of drop to air, we'll do the same thing as our exits. You can have your cascade, but I'll keep it separate. In the scene, I'll set check distance to 4 meters down. Anything beyond that will be considered to be dropping to air. And I'll set the offset to be 0.25 back from the raycast point. Now we can climb up like before and drop down to the ground. Dropping to air, well, we never covered falling. Finally, to wrap things up, we'll create a way to mark things that are not climbable. Currently, you can change the layer of the game object, but that isn't always suitable. Let's create a new script called climb modifier. It will be a mono behavior, and we will expose the boolean climbable so you can set it in the inspector, and then create public property with it as the backing field so you can access it in other scripts. This can easily be an interface as well. Anyways, in canClimb, we'll declare a climb modifier, and if the down hit is true, we'll call getComponent on the collider of the down raycast hit, otherwise it'll be null. If the climb modifier is equal to null, or if the modifier is climbable, then we can proceed as usual. In the scene, I'll add the climb modifier to one of the objects and set climbable to false. In playing, running into the wall does nothing unless we make it climbable again. Well, that's all folks. Of course it isn't perfect and I do make some assumptions, but this should give you an idea of what to do if you want to implement this style of climbing into your own game. From here, you can make your own improvements by creating more climb variations, using better animations, and using inverse kinematics to position the hands and feet. As always, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.